Hello, welcome to another episode of Golda's Girls. My name is Carla van Welsum, and today we have an amazing guest, my dear friend Debbie Btesh, doctor in Oriental Medicine and acupuncturist. And she's going to share her interesting story that she went to Israel in March, right, 2024. So there we go, Debbie. What made you go there in the time of war?
It's not an easy choice to make, to travel to Israel at time of war. So many of us felt incredibly compelled to be of service, to go, what do we do, what do we bring to the table? But the situation on the ground was incredibly complicated during this war, a lot more complicated than other wars. So I hesitated to travel in 2014, which was a shorter war. I didn't have a hesitation. I picked up and I left, and I worked for about 2 weeks also. And that felt fantastic, and I was able to go there and do what I could.
And if you help, what is it what you do?
So this time or last time?
Both. Tell about both. 2014 first, you did.
So 2014, I was able to help with special needs children that were at home. They were locked up in homes because there was very little time with the bombs falling, and so I went to Sderot and I treated a child in his home and his mother, and then I went to Ashkelon and Ashdod, and we went house to house with a friend of mine. We treated the special needs soldiers. They have a unit that's special needs. It's a beautiful unit, and they work on base, and they figure out what work they could do. So I treated them. They don't live on base, they live off base, and I treated them. We did a little bit of that kind of work that trip. This trip, because there was so much more activity and it was really an all-encompassing war in a different way, it took me a little while to get settled and to choose to go. And then I finally was convinced. Somebody came back from Israel, because I was thinking, there's so many people on the ground, there's so many people going and coming. I'm not needed, right?
Yeah.
And then a dear friend came and said, oh, they need you.
Okay, good.
They need you. She came back at the beginning of March. I already had a ticket because I was going for something to do with a personal matter, and she said, they definitely need you. And I was wavering, yes, no. She said, please go, they need you. And that really got my fire going.
Yeah.
And I said, fine. And I connected through roundabout ways with two organizations. One of them is called Hayal's Angels, which is the angels of the soldiers, and they do beautiful work. And
say it another time.
Hayal's Angels.
Very
you can
beautiful.
find them online. It's CHAYALS angels.org.
Perfect.
And then there's another gentleman. His name is Chaim, and I've never seen an angel like him. He's been working nonstop since the beginning of the war, coordinating therapists of all kinds throughout Israel to come into the bases and treat the soldiers coming out of the front line. And even sometimes going into the front line. And transferring therapists to the war zone to help soldiers recover. So I don't remember how I got to him, but I did. And so with these two organizations, I organized, out of my 2 weeks there, it was 4 days a week. So 4 intense days of work each week, so a total of 8 out of my 12 days there. Probably like 18 to 20 hour days between the driving and the working and the helping people come and go, because I was driving around. It's been the most transformative experience to be able to take a skill that I love, that I feel passionate about, and bring it into the field, into the front lines, as we wage a war and as we are together. So it really helped me connect and be part of this war effort in a way that felt good for me and very profoundly beneficial to the people I was serving.
Yeah, fantastic. So you could help, you could do something. Because most of us felt so powerless.
Yes.
And we donated and we sent stuff and we did all kinds of things. Yeah, that is fantastic. So you're really at the front lines, right?
Oh yeah,
Frontline.
I went to the bases on the Gaza envelope. Some of those
Yeah.
bases had been run over during the October 7th massacre. Drove through all of that area.
Were you afraid?
No. It's
No.
an interesting thing. When I'm in Israel, I'm never afraid.
No. I know what you mean. I am the same. You feel you have to be there. Yeah.
And so there was no fear. I was driving most of those roads by myself. Thank God,
Really?
most of the time the GPS was working, because sometimes
Oh
they
yeah,
scramble
that was
it.
terrible.
So
Yeah.
for me at the time, it was interesting that it was not being scrambled, so I was able to get where I was going. And with the coordination of these two organizations, I was able to really serve quite a bit of people. So in the south, this gentleman Chaim
Mm-hmm.
organizes groups of therapists, all kinds, massage therapists, acupuncturists, healers of all qualities, energy work, whatever people, whatever skills, and he organizes them. They volunteer, they show up at the base.
Fantastic.
And for me, it was my first experience on a military base.
Yeah. How was that? Because you see the boys go in the morning, they come back, or how they come back?
So in this case, the base that I first went to, there was a group of men that had just come in.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a base. It was one of the bases that was overrun. It was one of the bases that a lot of women were killed in. And so there's been a constant flow of coming in and out of Gaza. So when I was there, I was able to treat both regular troops, meaning the young men drafted between the ages of 18 to 21, 22, as well as a group of reserves. So everyone was coming in. It was like, so we get
And they all wanted it. They were like,
no, it's a very curious thing.
yeah,
The moment you tell them that you have a needle,
yeah.
that was one of the most
That's funny.
fantastic
For soldiers.
situations that I felt
Yeah.
that I constantly ran into, is that these men coming in with their
Everything.
weapons and this and that, and then you tell them, would you like me to needle you? And they run. It's like, don't touch me.
Really? That is so funny. So how did you do
So
that?
it's
How did
very
you get
funny.
them
So
to do
you
it?
get one. You get one to volunteer.
And
You
is
get
it-
one to say, oh, I've done this before. Sure, I'll take care of it. Yeah, I'll do it. And so one does it,
And
and all of a
starts.
sudden, his friends are looking, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll try that. I did mostly ear acupuncture.
Yeah, I saw that in the.
So the ear acupuncture I did because there's a protocol specifically for trauma that is in the ear. So it's 5 needles each ear. It's easy, it's simple, it's easy to access.
Yeah.
Many of these soldiers were unable to take off their shoes because they're on duty. And when you're on duty, you don't take off your shoes never.
Yeah.
Not to sleep, not to eat, nothing. Your shoes have to be on.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to deal with all of this. Can you, can't you?
Yeah.
I just said, fine, I can
go
work.
through the-
I can
yeah.
work through the ears, and I can treat arms, legs, back, anything else.
Yeah.
So the NADA protocol restructures the nervous system,
Uh-huh.
helps them take a deep breath and quiet, and then that can also shift the pain and the physical pain, as well as the mental emotional strain of what they're going through. And the wisdom of acupuncture is that it takes you down to the notch that your body can manage at that moment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So these men are still at war.
Yeah.
These men were coming in and going right back out. So it was like deep breath and then filtering right back out. So the work in the ears, or most of the work, just the body can go only as far as it can go,
Yeah.
knowing that it's going to go back out.
Yeah.
So it's not a time to process trauma, it's a time to just take a breath and filter back out into the world. So from that perspective, that's what I did. So I would sit them down wherever they put me. Sometimes they gave me a room in like a barracks. In this particular field, it was like a barracks, and they gave me some chairs. And I'm not complicated. Sit. You want to sit on the stairs? You want to sit outside? You want to sit with your friends over there? Wherever you want, I'll sit. Put your needles and sit. I took my heart chakra sound bowl, so we did a lot of that. And they would sit, and they were lovely. The boys and the men were just so grateful.
Yeah.
They were soft. They were sweet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
You could see the shifting.
Yeah.
you could see them kind of quieting, and that was also very beautiful to see. And then they would move on to somebody else, whatever other services were being offered, so they can just hop from room to room to room to room to room and get whatever they could out of it.
So great, yeah. And you put in 5 needles. How long did it stay in?
Whatever. Sometimes it was 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes it was 20. Whatever they were, whatever they could, whatever they were willing to do. But the treatment is anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes, ideally.
And if you want to do something for them for regulating the fear that they must have?
All of it is dealt with through the same 5 needles. I would add needles if there was like, oh, my shoulder hurts, my toe hurts, something else was hurting. I could add more because the ear is a miniature human.
Yeah.
And there's specific acupuncturists that only treat through the ear.
So in the course of the days, more and more were taking this, right? They were inspired by their friends.
It came and went. There was a very funny moment this particular day where they were sitting down, they had needles in them, and all of a sudden the alarms went off, the sirens went off, and everybody just reacted, and I'm like, wait a second, you have needles on. But of course, and then there was like a false alarm so that they were
oh, that's something.
It's like, okay, that's fine.
That's the stress.
No running around with needles.
No.
That was a funny thing. Like checking where's my needles, don't run away with my needles.
Pretty scary too, because if they indeed run and then
then I'm looking for everything. And then that day I went to I would go to multiple places. This gentleman, Chaim, would say, okay, you can do this, and then can you go to that one, and can you go to that? And then so I would go where I was needed.
Wow. That is so fantastic. And that was in March, right?
March. And then that was my first time in the walking into a military base and being checked, and then you have those like metal bunkers, and then they're like things like you have to go through this way and that way, and it's an interesting experience. I don't have any military background.
Well, thank God that you haven't experienced it so much before.
One of the pictures that I also sent you was in this particular, all of them, in the barracks, between the barracks, which basically are mobile units, right? And they're just like a room, and they can put 6 bunks in there. Between a certain section of them, you always have a bunker. Yeah. And so it's a very interesting thing to always see these bunkers where people could just run in. Yeah. We're really literally on the border.
Yeah, because in Gaza themselves they didn't build any.
For all of this, for all these years, if you were in any of these bases, you would be bombed. Bombs would be coming anyway.
Yeah.
So they were, the sirens would go on even in the middle of whatever it was. People had to run into these bunkers. So that's for an American, so to speak, from a Western perspective, from a non-Israeli perspective, seeing all these bunkers everywhere was pretty. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Have you ever seen that before somewhere else?
Not in my lifetime, no.
We had it in the Netherlands too, because of the Second World War. And of course many bunkers in France, right?
No, I'm from Colombia. We don't have bunkers.
Thank God. I was there I went to Israel in May with my sons. And my daughter, of course. We had a chuppah, a wedding. And we went to the Shifa, I always say hotel, Shifa hospital. Yeah, with the soldiers that were in recovery. In recovery, and we had the most beautiful conversations. I actually was thinking that's what I can do at this moment because of the nature of my work, but that's all that I could offer. But it's so beautiful to have conversations with them, with their siblings that come by, or a parent. There was one mother, she has 3 children in the IDF, and you're like, holy, what are you going through, And what I really liked, what I haven't seen before, but that's because of it is Israel for the situation. So you had the Shiva hospital, but also the hotel. It was like a little round building that every soldier that was there for a couple of months in the rehab, then
family member.
Yes, and that's so beautiful, And we were there at a party too, that a few girls from Canada came for a couple of months. They were collecting money and they were making parties all the time, and somebody could go home. And you see the ones that have damage in their heads, you see the ones that have chopped off so much. It's
it's
so courageous and so strong. Yeah.
You reminded me of a mother that, a wife mother that, wife/mother that I treated when I treated one of the days that we went to treat refugees, internally displaced people that were in hotels in Tel Aviv.
Oh yeah.
And this woman had been displaced from the north. Her husband and her son were both serving.
Yeah.
And she was a nervous wreck, and she had just gone to the hospital the day before. She thought she was having a heart attack. She was having all of these, problems with her palpitations and agitation. So my friend and I were working together, collaborating. We treated her, and she was like, "I don't want needles. Another one of these. Don't put needles into me." And I said, "No problem." So there's a non-needle format with some magnets and wires that connect to these wires, just to replicate a different system. Feet up, laying on the floor, and she really was able to, because that agitation of sending, both your men.
Yeah.
And
that was fantastic that you could do that, and that they experience it and get over their fear of needles.
No, she wasn't.
She didn't want it. She just didn't want it.
I had to reroute. So the beauty of the work that I do is that you don't want needles, okay, I can do sound. You don't want you want sound, then I'll do the magnets and wires.
Yeah.
And there's always there's a workaround so that I can.
What did you do with her?
I did magnets.
Magnets.
And the wires that connect to the magnets.
Yeah. Wow.
Because, she's not on active duty. She can take off her shoes.
Yeah.
I'm not worried she has to run off anywhere.
It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Wow. That's amazing. And the other people that came there too. Yeah. Are you still in touch with one of them?
With the women that I treated, the soldiers that I treated?
Soldiers? No.
No, I didn't take any of that information. I am in touch with some of the therapists that I worked with, because some of them I transported with me. On some of those occasions, I would, Chaim would coordinate and say, "Can you pick up?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I picked up people. Other volunteers, that was also very interesting. There were a lot of other people from the US, Canada that were flying in specifically to help.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah.
So then I collected what I could. Some people drove, some people didn't. I collected the people I could. I took them to the bases, and then.
It's so wonderful. People that go. Just leave everything. Like these two girls that were organizing those parties every time, and they organized food, and they made food, and they did so much. It was very beautiful. And they took a leap year in school. They were like, we're just going to Israel.
Took a time.
And we go to Israel, and we're going to help out in our way. Very, very nice.
Yeah. The last day that I was there treating soldiers, it was this group of reserves that were coming out of rotation. One of the bases, and it was just so sweet. This was very common now through this war. They do barbecues, they put music, these Moroccan background women show up, and they make all of this special desserts, and it's just such a funny thing, because you're thinking, this is a military base, but the girls were the women were from Ashkelon, and they just came, and they come with all their homemade, they come with their plastic containers, and they make these things, and they're cooking, and it just feels like absolute like family.
Yeah.
And that was also something very beautiful to observe as I worked with the different soldiers, different locations. We speak a lot of the resilience of the Jewish people and the resilience of the Israelis, and a lot of that resilience is due to that sense of interconnectedness, right?
Feeling part of the tribe.
It's not just tribe, it's like this. I was treating at that in particular, that last day, I was treating a commander and somebody a male commander, and then a female staff member in his group, much younger. I mean, they could have been father-son, father-daughter situation. That was the age gap, and they're sitting next to each other, the ears are needled, and they're poking fun at one another. So that the vertical command structure flips horizontal, flips vertical, flips horizontal, consistently through, if there had been a phone call or if the sirens would have gone, that would have gone vertical in terms of this is the command structure and everyone knows their role. But when it's not active it flips into this horizontal where you're the age of my daughter, and this sense of family. The military in general, there's all this community sense of family, but here this sense of family is a lot more intense, I think, than in other militaries. And so that day, for example, I also treated. That was like this commander and a member of his staff going horizontal. And they were older, they were reserves.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was the younger kids that were not reserves. They are the draftees that are working and serving, and so they're hanging out along with the reserves. So this I don't even have a word for it, but it's like the fluidity of the ages, the fluidity of the command structures, the fluidity of this sense that we're going to watch out for each other. It feels, the resilience comes because it feels like family.
Yeah.
And strangers are family.
Yeah.
You walk out of the reserves where people would be coming in from their whatever lives they were leading outside before that war, and drop everything, be called up or volunteer back in, and swept right back into the service. And then within hours, they're now a family.
Incredible loyalty.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And they're back in.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a switch goes off and now we're back in.
Yeah.
And one of the other funny stories is in two different bases, one in the south and one in the north, talking about family. So pets are family, right?
Yeah, your dogs.
I sent you some pictures of these two dogs, and one of the two gentlemen in two different bases, different situations. They were on reserves and they didn't have anyone to watch their animals, and so the animals are on duty. They're on base. So one of them said to me, I came into my reserve, I did my rotation, they asked me to come back. I said, no problem, but I have to bring my animals. I don't have anybody to watch them. So he's funny because he left his business and he has to manage his business from the front line. So he does what he can, and then sometimes they give him time off and he runs back to his city, and then he works, organizes that, and then comes back into service. But the dogs, they're on base.
Yeah. They also found dogs that were abandoned in
Yes, but those were.
And they took them also.
Some
it must have ended with a lot of dogs.
But these were like their personal dogs.
I get it.
Just so.
Yeah.
And then of course having an animal, some people are afraid, some are not, but everybody figures it out. But having those animals for the soldiers, for those who like the pets, is also.
Yeah.
Emotional support for the whole troop.
Yeah, and dogs are so amazing. They're so compassionate, and they understand something like, hey.
So that was an interesting thing. Like, you want me to come in to serve? No problem.
I take
my animals coming in.
And a few cats come and they start to fight. Ooh.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
I did
course.
That.
Cat and mouse. Oh. Yeah, wow, wonderful. Are you planning on going again? Because unfortunately, this war is not over very quickly.
Yes, I have a trip coming up.
Are you doing the same work then? Because you go for the high holidays.
I'm going to be spending some time in Israel through Rosh Hashanah into the beginning of Sukkot, and I'm hoping to volunteer. There's a beautiful gap between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
It's a full week, so I'll probably work about 4 days.
Wonderful.
Check in and see where they need me most, where I'm needed,
Yeah.
and off I go. So, and the most important thing I have to pack now instead of clothes, there's like side note now is like needles, sound healing.
Yeah, you know what to take now. This reminds me in my first career, I told you probably I was a classical flutist, right? And in the Roosevelt Philharmonic, there were 4 Israelis that came from Israel. Yeah, Israelis that came from Israel, right? A quartet, a string quartet, and they had played in front of the soldiers to emotionally, and they went really to certain places, of course, other like the Golan or wherever they were was in the 70s. And that's another way, that people that never heard classical music, people come to play for you. They did that like for a few weeks too.
That's beautiful.
Wonderful.
Yes,
I remember when I heard it for the first time, it touched me like, wow, how amazing.
Everything is helpful. It's interesting that they don't ask too many questions about, whatever you do. You're a physical therapist, we need you. You're a chiropractor, we need you. You're a massage therapist of, all the varieties of it, we need you. You do yoga, we need you. We do.
Yeah.
And then Chaim sent me a message and said, I need yoga books for the soldiers, so they come back so that we can help them. No problem. So I went off and I ordered, I don't even know how many yoga books. Now I have to send them. So I sent them, and then the girl that I sent these with went to drop them off and met Chaim, and Chaim says, what do you know how to do? And she's like, well, I do yoga. I'm a teacher. Like,
Okay,
great.
there you go. Yeah.
Not only did you deliver the books, now you're coming to teach and help and
nice.
put her right to work. So that's also a beautiful thing. Everybody has something to offer,
and
a
that is so
talent,
true.
and
Whatever
a
it
talent
is. Yeah.
to do something, and that's magical. And here's this magical country that allows all these civilians in and out of their
Oh, we need it.
out of their military establishments and organizations. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because here you can only imagine the United States.
If this works with trust, here they would
This
have,
would not be
that
happening.
wouldn't work here.
We would have, it was
You
like
know,
be
this
like
paperwork's filled out.
paperwork. And, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they on their side were checking that. I don't know. I'm not aware. You had to apply. You had to put in your credentials. You had to do some protocol.
Yeah.
There was some filling out of forms, but once they fill, I don't know how they double checked what their procedures were on their end.
I did this also as therapist because I was on the list for English speaking, right? Because my Hebrew is not that great. And I think it works also with trust. If you come there with integrity to help out, really, you also need to believe and trust that people know what they do, unless somebody's totally off, but you cannot always go from that wrong side. It's so important to work with the trust, and you will see that. It will show quickly enough. There's nothing to do. Yeah.
So, but it's interesting, trusting people from the outside to come into military bases is more like what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
Not
I
just
know.
like the trusting that you know what you're doing in terms of the soldiers and the treatments, but it's also trusting you to come into those spaces.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, I think, unique aspect of our people and our country and the devotion that we have from the outside, from the inside.
Yeah, not everyone, but a lot do have that. And the connection, that collective consciousness.
Yes.
We felt the panic and we felt the pain, and I think by now everybody I met has said October 7th changed them forever. And October 8th too.
Thereafter.
The day after, with all these horrific accusations. Yeah.
And then on another fun note, because there was a lot of interesting experiences I was sharing with you the other day, that on the southern border where I was helping out, one day I was sent to ex-military base and said, okay, you need to treat these guys, no problem. They work on the tanks. I had 45 minutes. I laid them down on barrack in my room. Everybody's laying down with the needles. I knew that they had to be out by 5. So at 4:45, needles come out. They get dressed and they're out. Okay. And I leave the base. Next day, my friend and I, that I brought into this work, we went to treat a very special woman who is a police officer in the town of Netivot. And I met her, she had come to the United States to take a break and to talk to some people here in my area. And so I was connected to her. She has 3 daughters. Her husband was one of the police officers killed in the police headquarters of Sderot. So he died that October 7th in the invasion of the police station, and she was left with her 3 daughters. So I connected to her and made arrangements to come and see her in her home and treat her children, and we treated her children and her friend who came. So that was really special to be able to be of service, talking about Israeli people and this ability to just walk into people's homes, not only their military bases. So I'm in her home, and the children are quite small still, mostly preschool age, maybe 1 first grader, and then
they lost their father.
They just lost their father, so that was in October. Now it's March, and Mom is sitting with her needles wherever we were doing needles. I think we were doing needles, ears, whatever we were doing, I can't remember. And then one of the children is hungry, and I'm like, okay. I went into the refrigerator, pulled out some food, cut up some cucumbers.
Oh my.
Here you go.
Yeah.
I don't speak Hebrew, so it's a very interesting experience to deal with children you can't talk to, and you don't want to continue to give them chocolate. So and then that night, so that was just like an aside. And then from there, we were asked to go back to this base that I treated these men the day before, and off I went. And I arrive and I'm told, well, I'm sorry, I know that we need you here, but you can't come in. I'm like, what? Nope. There's there's no women allowed on base, and then there's a group of soldiers here that are not willing to have women on base. So I'm so sorry you came all this way.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I don't have a problem. I don't have to come on
They
base.
can come out.
You guys have chairs? They're like, yeah. I'm like, roll them out. Whoever wants to have acupuncture, roll out the chairs.
Perfect.
It's nighttime. So we rolled out the chairs, put it under some the big lights, and we had a little.
Perfect.
So we had 5 or 6 guys that came out. We had needles in them, and we brought out a boombox. And I called it my Gaza beach party because we were almost at the beach.
Fantastic. But you yourself show also a lot of resilience and power, because we all deal with, every human, of course, with the fear. What is our ultimate fear? Is to die, right? And you can stay in the fear or in the victimhood or in that place that is not a great place to be. But to go into the resilience and go and move and just do it, that creates so much energy and creates so much strength. And I find it very powerful, because I've spoken to other people that asked me when I went in May to Israel, are you going and are you afraid? It was the first question. I said, no, I'm not. I'm not afraid. And yeah, I go and I see what I can do. And that was often the response. All my friends tell me not to go. Not my friends, but their friends, like, because it's dangerous. You know what? Life is dangerous. You can walk in the street here, and you can it's like you cannot live like that. But the fear, the trauma brain speaks, as you well know, and that mobilizes, and that's a pity, because that's resilience. That Israelis have to be resilient, and they do it. But all the pain now, all the losses, almost every day, it's unbearable, and it's not over. And it's just so horrible, the whole situation. Let's not forget that.
And it becomes bearable because of the sense of community.
Yeah.
Of the sense of togetherness.
Absolutely.
Someone is released from the hospital, and you have these young ladies that do a party, but as they come home, you see these incredible, I'm sure it's not absolutely everyone, but there's a lot of it, that the community comes together, and there's a whole entourage welcoming them home, and there's been support for the families. And so, trauma is something that happens that overwhelms a system, a body system, and a lot of that embedded trauma happens if there is not a support.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally true.
When there's the question is in drama. Trauma is often about who was there for you, with you, to help you in the moment. And though it's been dramatic, and there's been a lot of trauma, of course, then the management of the trauma has been, in Israel, feels different than other tragedies around the world on some level, because there's so much together.
Yeah.
There's so much community. There's so much, families are connected, and the neighborhoods are connected, and towns are connected, and this one's one of ours, and we're going to, fight. We're going to help, and we're going to do that. Like that. That helps a community travel through disaster together as they move through all the stages of pain. Yeah. But there is a sense of together. Of course, there's a personal trauma, and people can become overwhelmed. There is a lot of that pain. That's being addressed as best as I can, and grief. However, that we have done it together helps to mitigate it in ways that other countries perhaps don't have that sense.
Yeah, but the words that I think of that you described is empathy and compassion. And they are so healing for any trauma in a way. I find it pretty touching when there's a lone soldier that fell in a battle, right? Like a few times happened, and the family couldn't fly.
Thousands go.
Yeah.
Thousands show up for the funeral.
It's like
strangers.
Overwhelming.
Strangers.
Thousands.
They don't know this child. They don't know him from anyone, and then they will come in the thousands to show up for these funerals.
Yeah, that is like.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
That's something.
And I wish that for everybody in the world, right? To have that and to create
that. Community.
A community. That's what we need. To be there for each other. It's a gift. it's a wonderful gift.
Indeed. Yeah, I look
Yeah.
forward to returning.
Yeah.
Instead of being more like, oh my God, am I going to go back? I'm afraid. It's more like, when can I get there?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was hard to return.
Yeah.
More than hard to go. It was once I made the decision to go, when I really sensed that, I am needed. There's not enough hands on deck on the floor in the front of the situation. Then I said, great, and I'm in. And when I didn't want to come back.
It's like you leave a piece of yourself behind. Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, I know. Maybe one time we go together. Oh yeah, maybe you build your village. I'm signing up. Great plans. Yeah, great plans.
And it's also beautiful to see the amount of healing modalities and
openness
people,
to it. Yeah.
and the people that do all kinds of beautiful work. People who are trained, people who are motivated. There's so much healing knowledge among the Jewish people in Israel, and that's just wow. It's always very nice to see and connect to that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Well, we have, as from like the Shoah, the Holocaust, right? The desire for this should never happen again, right? Never ever happen again. And how can we make the world a better place? Is a very Jewish thought, the Tikkun Olam, or to make the world a better place. And therapy is one of it. And choosing qualities you have or don't have, but you learn them to help people heal, to make the world in a way a little nicer. And it's a very big.
I hope so.
Yeah.
One needle at a time.
One courageous soldier at a time. Yeah. What is your anti-Semitic opinion? Yeah. Pick and choose.
But today we're going to choose the president of Colombia, Petro. Petro broke relations with Israel pretty early on in the process. Petro was, or is, the president of Colombia, but he is historically the leader of the FARC, which is a guerrilla group that fought in Colombia for decades. And it's very well known that the guerrillas of Colombia were involved in the drug trade, and they were friendly with Hezbollah because there's a link between the drug trade and the arms trade, and we were all friends. So he's loyal to Hezbollah in Iran, with Israel, which is very consequential because Israel has been a great participant in the military complex in Colombia. And there's other major things that are going on between them for many decades in terms of agriculture and water and things like that. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But I would say that he's my anti-Semitic of the day.
That was typically an act of gratitude. But you tell me, this what happened. It's terrible. Yeah. Well, I had also to think a lot because there are every day a few new ones. What stood out for me is the sister of Rashida Tlaib, and her name is Laila Elabed, and she and another guy, I don't know whom, asked Kamala Harris for discussion about a probable weapon embargo to Israel. And sure, we can talk about it, Kamala Harris said. And I mean, how many languages do we speak? Then we tell our truth. When are we truthful? I find it another example of the difficult political situation in America, that it's only so polarized in two parties, and everything is done to gain votes or whatever. And I found that a horrible example. Really, every day I see examples that throw me off, and this was one like, you know what? I wasn't surprised that Laila Elabed would say something. I was surprised, but let's talk about it. How can you say with one mouth, we will always support Israel? Let's talk about a weapon embargo. Well, then I do. Okay, we have a hero too. Your hero.
My heroine.
Oh, beautiful.
My heroine is Carolyn Glick. She's an amazing writer. And she has a podcast, and she has She addresses the issues of the day. She pulls information in an incredible manner.
Yeah.
Explains what you're reading in the news from a perspective that one can make sense of it.
Yeah.
I listen to her a lot. I read what she writes.
Yeah.
And she has brought me to my attention two people that are now writing for Tablet magazine, which is also a wonderful source of
Yeah.
information.
Mhm.
Carolyn Glick works for the Jewish News Syndicate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she also collaborates with the Tablet magazine. And I can always say that I'm going to add a couple more people. There's a writer at the Tablet magazine who's probably an editor as well. His name is Tony Badran, Badran. And he speaks about, he's Lebanese, and he really speaks about the peace, the perspective of the Middle East from the Arab perspective. Just published an incredible article, came out last days,
Mhm.
about what really is happening, what we don't see happening, but is really happening in terms
Yeah.
of the U.S. policy moving towards Iran centric and isolating some of the allies, traditional allies.
Yeah.
It's important. And then the other beautiful writer that Carolyn Glick interviewed that I like very much was Isabella Tabarovsky.
Yeah.
And she really speaks about she's been writing about the influence through the decades of the Russian,
Yeah.
the USSR,
I've seen that one too.
as they influenced the policies
Yeah. The mindsets.
and the mindsets and the languaging, and how the languaging that we saw pop up suddenly, quote, suddenly after October 7th,
Yeah.
has been in the lexicon, but it's been happening for so many decades that we're not paying attention, and now it's here.
Yeah.
So she has a beautiful, so these are like really my heroes. I'm
That's
sorry I can't have one.
I love that. And she will be interviewed with Golda's Girls pretty soon too. Because,
Isabella?
yeah,
Oh, I love
because
it.
maybe you want to join that interview. That would be so nice. Yeah.
I have to read her piece.
She-
I have to, it's like,
powerful.
I was reading it, it's like long.
Powerful. Yeah, there's so much that becomes clear. Well, I have also here two heroes. Let me also take two today. One is Gabi Taub. He is an historian, Israeli historian. He gives very interesting interviews with very clear visions. He tells about his own, he speaks about his own changing in perceptions, how he believed first this and now believes that, and how it's so underbuilt with historical perspectives. And the other one is Dan Sheftan.
Oh,
Yeah, I love him too. He's very outspoken and he's nice to listen to. And that's so important that when you tell all those things, they're so emotionally loaded in a way. If you talk about it angry, it's hard to listen to. The same for Carolyn Glick. She has a calming, soothing voice. I listen to her usually before I go to sleep somewhere. If there's a new one. It's kind of funny, but it's very insightful, and I'm very grateful for those people. And we need to speak out so much more and try to speak out so much more. We are we are from the world community 0.2 of the quantity of people, right? And Muslims are 2 billion, and then we have a lot of people, and then there's no numbers about that, how they're influenced by the 25 years of penetration of propaganda and publishers. Well, we should end with a nice note. I start now to go to the other way around. I don't want to do that, but it is beautiful to look at people that speak out and have great messages and support us and tell us about everything. And we go to the videos later. So thank you so much for being here, Debbie. It was such a pleasure to hear all your beautiful stories of heroism too. You're actually my heroine too. You didn't want me to say that, but that's true. I wish more people are like you, and you help people here and you help people there. You have a very strong positive attitude and a lot of wisdom. You also do constellation work, which I'm very good at. So thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time. Bye for now.
ciao.
Yeah.